You're fired. You're fired. Get out. No, you're fired.
Take your hands off him. The shout came too late. The two security guards had already slammed the janitor against the glass wall outside the executive boardroom, and the bucket beside him tipped over, spilling gray water across the polished marble like a stain that wouldn't stop spreading. Vanessa Hart, the CEO of Hartwell Dynamics, didn't even flinch. She stared at the quiet man pinned in front of her, saw the blood at the edge of his eyebrow, and said, cold as winter, "You're fired, right now. And if you ever step into this building again, I'll have you arrested." If stories like this get under your skin, subscribe, like the video, and tell me where you're watching from before we begin. Because this one doesn't just twist, it cuts deep, and it won't let go until the very end. The man everyone knew as Daniel didn't argue. That was what made the whole thing stranger. He didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't curse her out in front of the managers, assistants, and board members gathering near the hall pretending not to stare. He just stood there, breathing hard, one hand pressed to his side, the other still wrapped around the broken metal frame he had been trying to pull off the wall before it fell. Vanessa stepped closer. "You were told never to come to this floor." Daniel looked at her, then at the crooked frame hanging by one screw above the investor welcome display. "If I hadn't grabbed it," he said quietly, "it would have hit somebody." Vanessa gave a sharp laugh. "So now you're a hero?" "No," he said. "Just tired." That should have ended it. But then her eyes dropped to the old brass keycard hanging from his neck. Not the blue card issued to maintenance, not the white card used by security. Black. Executive access. Her face changed. "Where did you get that?" Daniel reached for it instinctively, but one of the guards twisted his arm back. "It opens some old service doors," he said. "Liar." She ripped the card free and turned to the crowd. "This is exactly what's wrong with this place," she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "People who don't know their place wandering where they shouldn't, touching what they shouldn't, pretending they matter." A few nervous smiles flickered through the hallway. Daniel's face didn't move. Only his eyes did. And when Vanessa leaned close and whispered, "You should have stayed invisible," something passed across his expression so quickly she almost missed it. Not fear, not anger, disappointment. Then he said very softly, "That sentence is going to cost you more than you think." The hallway went still. Vanessa pulled back like she'd been slapped. "Get him out!" The guard shoved him toward the elevator. His lunch bag dropped, split open, and a little pink notebook slid across the wet marble. One of the assistants bent to pick it up. On the front, written in glitter pen, were the words, "For Daddy, open when sad." Nobody laughed at that, not even Vanessa. But she still turned away. Because in exactly 3 hours, Hartwell Dynamics was supposed to close the biggest merger in company history. A merger that would put her on every business channel in the country. A merger she had bled for, clawed for, sacrificed sleep, relationships, and whatever softness used to live inside her chest for. She was not about to let a janitor ruin her day. What she didn't know was that her day had already been ruined. Daniel Reyes had worked in that building for 8 months. Most people only knew 3 things about him. He never talked unless he had to. He always left by 6. And every evening at 5:15 on the dot, no matter what floor he was cleaning, he stopped for exactly 10 seconds at the wall near the old HR office, touched the corner of a faded company photo, and kept walking. People made up stories. Some said he had been in prison. Some said his wife used to work there and died. Some said he wasn't even really a janitor, just some strange guy management kept because he worked hard and never complained. Only Mia at the front desk knew the truth about one thing. He was a single dad. She'd seen the drawings in his cart, the folded school notes, the pharmacy receipts, the tiny inhaler tucked beside his keys. Once, when he'd come down early looking pale, she'd asked if he was okay. He had nodded. "My daughter's got a school performance tonight," he said. "First one since her mom died. She said if I miss it, she'll still smile on stage. But less." Then he smiled, but it looked like it hurt. Kids tell the truth like little knives. Mia never forgot that line, and she definitely never forgot what happened an hour before the firing. Daniel had come through the lobby faster than usual, not running but close. "Is Vanessa in?" he asked. Mia blinked. He had never called the CEO by her first name. "She's upstairs with the merger team. Why?" "There's water leaking behind the server wall on 17, and the investor display in the executive hall wasn't mounted right." Mia grabbed the phone. But before she could dial, Vanessa herself stepped out of the elevator with 2 board members and a man from legal trailing behind her. Daniel tried to speak. She held up a hand without even looking at him. "Not now." "It's urgent." Everything after that happened fast. The wall frame above the investor display had shifted. One of the hidden pipes behind the panel had already loosened under the pressure. When Daniel reached the executive floor through the service stairwell, he got there seconds before the heavy frame tore free. He caught it before it smashed into one of the visiting bankers. And Vanessa walked out just in time to see a janitor standing in a restricted hall, holding a damaged frame beside a puddle of dirty water. She never asked another question. Now, 40 minutes after the firing, she stood in front of the mirror in the executive restroom, reapplying lipstick with a steady hand, while her head of operations listed numbers behind her. "Post-merger reduction phase is ready. We can cut custodial, cafeteria, transport, and family support benefits by Q4. Vanessa capped the lipstick. "Good. Some of the board may push back on the childcare reimbursements. They'll get over it." "And the founder's office?" he asked carefully. That made her pause. Nobody used it. Not really. The corner office on the top floor had stayed locked for years, untouched except for occasional cleaning. The company's mysterious controlling owner held his shares through a private trust. The board got his approvals through attorneys. No one saw him. No one spoke to him directly. He existed like a ghost with signatures. "Leave it alone," Vanessa said. "The owner doesn't care how this place runs as long as the numbers climb." She believed that. She had built her entire reign on it. The first crack came 12 minutes later. Her assistant entered the conference room pale as paper. "There's a problem." "There's always a problem. Which one?" "The merger council says the majority shareholder has revoked provisional consent." Vanessa stared. "That's impossible." "He wants to attend the final board session in person." The room went silent. In person. Half the board members straightened in their seats. One of the older directors actually swore under his breath. Vanessa laughed once, short and disbelieving. "No, he hasn't shown up in 7 years." The assistant swallowed. "He's coming." Something cold slid into Vanessa's stomach. "What time?" The answer landed like a hammer. 6:30. At 5:52, Daniel was sitting in his truck outside Willow Creek Elementary, forehead resting on the steering wheel. He was late. The parking lot was already half empty. Rain tapped against the windshield while his phone buzzed in the cup holder. Again and again, with calls from a number he knew too well. Leonard Shaw, the company's outside counsel. Daniel ignored it. For 1 full minute, he just sat there, listening to his own breathing and the soft rattle of the engine. Then he reached for the pink notebook from his lunch bag. For Daddy, open when sad. Inside, in crooked handwriting, his 9-year-old daughter had written, "If someone is mean to you today, remember, you are not small. You just bend down a lot because you clean stuff." Daniel shut his eyes. That was the moment the day almost broke him. Because men like Daniel didn't usually break in public. They broke quietly. In parked cars, in dark kitchens, in hospital hallways. In the 10 seconds between hearing, "Dad?" from the next room, and answering with a voice that sounded stronger than they felt. He got out of the truck and ran. Inside the school auditorium, folding chairs were being stacked. A teacher looked up with sympathy already in her face. "You just missed it." Daniel nodded once, but his throat locked anyway. "Is she okay?" "She was brave." That word nearly killed him. Brave. Children only get called brave when life has already asked too much of them. He found Ellie backstage, still wearing cardboard wings over a blue dress her grandmother had hemmed twice because grief had made her lose weight that spring. She sat on a prop moon, hugging her script. When she saw him, she smiled exactly like she had promised. Less. "Hey, Bug." "Hey, Dad." She looked at the clock behind him. "Did the building emergency win?" He let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh, almost like pain. For a minute, she studied the cut on his eyebrow. "Did somebody hit you?" "No." That was a lie. Children know those too. She slid off the moon and stood in front of him, small and serious, her mother's eyes looking up from a face too young for that much understanding. "Did you get fired?" Daniel froze. "How do you know that?" "You only get that quiet when something bad happens." He looked away. And then she did the thing children do when they want to save the adults they love. She reached up, cupped his face in both hands, and whispered, "It's okay. We still have the soup from yesterday." He almost fell apart right there. Because she thought he was worried about dinner. Because 9-year-olds should never know how to calculate what's left in the fridge. Because her mother had been dead for 2 years, and somehow Ellie had become the one checking whether he was still holding together. Daniel pulled her into his chest and held on hard. "I'm sorry I missed it." "I know." "Were you scared?" "A little." "Did you do it anyway?" She nodded into his shirt. "Mom used to say being scared and doing it anyway is the whole trick." For a second, neither of them moved. Then his phone buzzed again. Ellie pulled back. "You have to answer?" He stared at the screen. Leonard Shaw. Again. "I was hoping I wouldn't." "Is it about the building?" "Yes." She looked at him the way children do when they sense the next choice matters more than the adults are willing to admit. "Then go." "What?" "Go." Her voice wobbled, but she held steady. "If somebody bad made you miss me, maybe don't let them win twice." Daniel looked at his daughter. This small person assembled from equal parts loss and light, and something inside him settled. He knelt in front of her. "What if I come back different?" She brushed the blood from his eyebrow with her thumb. "You're still my dad if you're wearing janitor shoes or fancy shoes." He smiled for real that time. "Fancy shoes, huh?" "You do own some," she said. "I checked." At 6:24, the top floor of Hartwell Dynamics felt like a courtroom waiting for a verdict.
Vanessa had changed jackets. The board had rearranged itself into careful calm. Even the water glasses looked nervous. The doors opened. Everyone stood. And in walked Leonard Shaw first, silver-haired and expressionless, followed by 2 members of private council, then Daniel Reyes in a charcoal suit so sharp it made the memory of the stained janitor uniform feel like a hallucination. Same face, same cut at the eyebrow, same quiet eyes. But now the room noticed what grief had been hiding all day. The posture of someone used to being obeyed. The kind of silence that didn't come from weakness. The kind that came from not needing to prove anything. Vanessa didn't stand. She forgot. For 1 full second, she could only stare. "No," she said. Daniel looked at her the same way he had in the hallway. Steady. Almost sad. Leonard placed a folder on the table. "For the record," he said, "this session is now being conducted in the presence of Daniel Elias Reyes, founder, majority owner, and acting chairman of Hartwell Dynamics." The room exploded. Not loudly. Worse. Sharp intakes of breath. Chairs scraping. One director whispering, "My God." Somebody at the far end muttering, "That's him?" Vanessa finally rose to her feet so fast her chair hit the wall. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "He was working here as a janitor." "Yes," Daniel said. "Why?" He took the empty chair at the head of the table. Her chair. The one positioned for the person with the final word. Then he answered, "Because reports lie." Nobody moved. He folded his hands. "Spreadsheets told me morale was strong. Exit reports told me turnover was normal. Your quarterly letters told me layoffs were strategic, employee hardship funds were underused, and our family support program had become non-essential." He glanced at Vanessa. "So I wanted to see what truth looked like without PowerPoint slides." Vanessa's face drained. Daniel went on.
I watched the cafeteria worker hide her insulin because she was afraid new insurance wouldn't cover it. I watched a programmer sleep in his car for 3 nights after relocation support was cut. I watched a pregnant accountant cry in the bathroom because her maternity leave request was called bad timing. And this afternoon, I watched my CEO tell a room full of people that a man who cleaned their floors didn't matter. Nobody breathed. Then Daniel reached into the folder and slid out the black access card Vanessa had ripped from his neck. "My wife designed these," he said quietly. "The first executive cards. We picked black because she said power should never be bright. It should be responsible." He set it on the table. She died 3 floors below this room. The silence became something alive. Years ago, before Vanessa's time, there had been rumors of an accident. A fire suppression malfunction. A locked service stairwell. A founder who vanished after the funeral and never returned. But no one at the table had ever heard him say her name. "Elena," he said, voice thinning just once. "She stayed late fixing a server failure because we were too small to lose a client. I told her I'd be right behind her. I chose a call over 10 minutes. 10 minutes. He looked at the skyline beyond the glass. By the time I got downstairs, the smoke had already taken the corridor." Even Vanessa looked shaken. Daniel turned back. "After she died, I stepped away. I let lawyers run the distance between me and this building. I thought if the profits were good, then the company was healthy. I was wrong." Leonard opened another document. Mr. Reyes has prepared emergency motions for board review. Vanessa found her voice. You deceived this company. Daniel's eyes lifted to hers. No, I cleaned it. That landed hard. She took a step forward. You don't get to dress this up like some moral crusade. You disappeared for years. I kept this place alive. You inflated short-term gains by gutting the people who built them. I made hard decisions. You made easy decisions that were hard on other people. Her jaw tightened. We were preparing for a merger. Daniel nodded. Yes, a merger that included a private recommendation memo from you authorizing the elimination of 612 positions by Christmas. Murmurs broke out around the table. Vanessa turned to the board. Standard post-acquisition modeling. Daniel slid another paper forward. And this, he said, is your request to remove bereavement support from salaried benefits because, quote, extended grief lowers output and creates a culture of fragility. Nobody even tried to hide their horror now. One older director took off his glasses and stared at her. Please tell me you didn't write that. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Everything I did was legal. Daniel leaned back slightly. That isn't the defense you think it is. Then came the twist that cracked the room open. Mia from the front desk was brought in. Then Carlos from shipping. Then Ruth from payroll. One by one, ordinary employees Daniel had spoken to during his months on the night shift entered that boardroom with statements, dates, screenshots, and shaking hands. Vanessa had assumed nobody below her mattered. That was the mistake powerful people make right before the fall. Ruth from payroll described being told to delay hardship reimbursements until struggling employees quit first. Carlos described managers being instructed to rank single parents as attendance risks. Mia, voice trembling at first, told the room exactly what she heard in the lobby that afternoon. He told her the leak was urgent. He tried to warn her. She ignored him. Vanessa scoffed. Are we really doing this? Taking corporate testimony from a receptionist and dock workers? Daniel's gaze darkened. No, he said. We're taking testimony from the people you forgot were human. The board voted to suspend the merger before she could recover. Then, they voted to open an internal investigation. Then, Daniel did the one thing Vanessa never imagined. He stood, walked to the wall monitor, and played the security footage from the hallway. There she was on the screen, in crystal clarity, in front of investors and staff, telling a bleeding janitor that people like him should know their place, and pretending they didn't matter. No spin. No edited context, just truth. When the video ended, nobody looked at her. Daniel did. And he wasn't angry anymore. That was worse. Do you know what the cruelest part was? He asked. Vanessa swallowed but said nothing. You saw a man in work shoes and decided his dignity was optional. Her lips parted. I didn't know who you were. That's exactly the point. She looked around the room, searching for allies. There were none left. Her shoulders hardened into the last shape pride takes before it shatters. So what now? You fire me and everyone claps? Does that fix your guilt? Your wife still died here. Your daughter still lost her mother. You still abandoned this company. The words hit like broken glass. Several people flinched. Daniel didn't. He walked closer until only the board table remained between them. You're right about one thing, he said. My daughter did lose her mother. And today, she almost looked out at an empty chair because of you. For the first time all night, his voice cracked. Just once. That was enough. She stood on a school stage without her dad because I was being escorted out of my own building for trying to keep your guests safe. Vanessa blinked, as if something human had finally reached her. But Daniel was past mercy now. I can survive humiliation. I've survived worse, but you don't get to make children pay for the ambition of adults. He straightened. As of this moment, you are terminated for cause. The words hung there. No music, no applause, no dramatic gavel. Just the clean, final sound of consequences arriving. Security stepped in. Hours earlier, she had used them to throw him out. Now they stood beside her. Vanessa laughed once, empty and disbelieving. You're making a mistake. No, Daniel said. I'm correcting one. She looked like she wanted to say something else, something cutting, something that would wound on the way out. But all that came out was, you really were cleaning floors. Daniel nodded. Best education I've had in years. She was escorted from the room in silence. And that should have been the end. But the story still had one last turn. When the doors closed behind her, Daniel didn't sit back down. He opened the merger folder, tore the signature page cleanly in half, and let both pieces fall into the trash. Then he looked at the board. Tomorrow morning, he said, we restore the Employee Emergency Fund. We reinstate family support benefits. We create a scholarship in Elena's name for the children of our lowest-paid workers. And every executive who signed off on treating people like disposal costs can decide tonight whether they'd like to resign before the audit finds them first. Nobody argued. Because real authority doesn't need volume. It just needs truth at the right moment. By the time Daniel got home, it was almost midnight. The porch light was on. Ellie was asleep on the couch under a blanket too small for the way she curled up, like someone trying to make herself easier for the world to carry. Daniel set his keys down quietly. But children who've known loss don't sleep deeply. Her eyes opened. Fancy shoes? She mumbled. He laughed under his breath. Yeah. How'd it go? He sat beside her. Complicated. Did you win? Daniel looked at her for a long second before answering. I think we stopped the wrong people from winning. That seemed good enough for her. She scooted closer and rested her head against him. After a minute, she asked, Are you still a janitor? He looked at his hands. Hands that had signed million-dollar contracts. Hands that had unclogged restroom sinks. Hands that had buried a wife. Hands that had braided a daughter's hair badly every Monday since. Then he kissed the top of Ellie's head and said, I think I'll always be a little bit of one. The next morning, Hartwell Dynamics opened 2 hours late. Not because the systems failed, because the workers finally stopped whispering. Word spread, floor by floor, office by office, break room by break room. The quiet janitor had been the owner. The CEO was gone. Benefits were restored. The merger was dead. And a little before noon, Daniel walked through the lobby in a plain navy suit, while people who had barely noticed him for months stood a little straighter as he passed. He didn't act bigger. That was what made them trust him. When he reached the front desk, Mia stood up so fast she almost knocked over her coffee. I'm so sorry, she blurted out, for yesterday. For not doing more. Daniel shook his head. You told the truth when it counted. That's more than most people do. He was about to walk on when she smiled nervously and said, "Your daughter left this." She handed him the pink notebook. A new note was tucked inside. He opened it. "If someone is mean to you again, maybe buy the building." Daniel actually laughed. The sound echoed through the lobby, warm and surprised, and for the first time since Elena died, the building didn't feel haunted. It felt alive. 3 months later, the scholarship fund launched with 100 full grants. Ruth from payroll headed the restored employee care office. Carlos was promoted. Mia became executive communications manager after Daniel discovered she had a degree nobody ever let her use. And on a small stage in the renovated atrium, beneath Elena Reyes's name engraved in brushed silver, Ellie stepped up to the microphone in a blue dress and looked out at a crowd of workers, parents, cleaners, coders, drivers, assistants, and executives sitting side by side. Daniel sat in the front row, on time. When Ellie found him, she smiled full this time. No less. No holding back.